Welcome to the Separation Anxiety in Dogs Decoded podcast. I am your host, Ness Jones, and we'll be deep diving into all things separation anxiety. But before we get started, please make sure you like this episode, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications so you never miss another one. And don't forget, if you are interested in joining my easy step-by-step training program to resolve separation anxiety in your dog, you'll find the link in the show notes. Now let's get started. In this episode, I wanted to talk to you about the struggle of having a dog with separation anxiety, because I do understand what it is like, and I know how hard it is. If you're listening to this or watching it on YouTube, you're doing it because you need help, or you need the information. But you don't have to struggle alone. That is why I created this podcast, to help people just like you. I do understand how isolating it can be having a dog with separation anxiety. If your family and your friends don't understand, if perhaps you're cancelling social engagements because you can't leave your dog by themselves and you can't find cover for your dog, they can often feel resentful of your dog, or I've even had people say, oh, you love the dog more than me, or you're spoiling the dog, all those sort of things. So it can be really isolating. It can be isolating because maybe you don't want to leave your dog to panic, which means your world becomes smaller. You can feel like a prisoner. You can lack freedom. You can't even pop to the shop spontaneously because you forgot to buy the milk or the bread. Anything that you do in your life becomes a military operation to get out the door to find somebody to look after your dog, simply because you don't want them to panic. So often when you're listening to a podcast like this, you can understand the concepts, but then it becomes difficult to put them into practice. So I'm trying, as we go through all these episodes, to give you that information that you need to start working on this, because let's face it, if you do nothing is going to change. But it is tricky to do home alone training, knowing what the next step is, and it's easy to make mistakes as well. For example, I think I've talked about this on a previous episode, but it's a common mistake that many dog guardians make, is trying to find out how much time they've actually got to leave their dog. So often they may get to the point where maybe the dog was fine for 4 minutes and they think, oh, let's go out and see how long we've got, or let's go out until the dog barks. Waiting until the dog barks is a very big mistake, because maybe once the dog is vocal, what's gone on before they started to vocalize? Is the dog now over threshold? Of course, if they're barking out something outside the window, that's completely different. But what I'm talking about is allowing the dog to get to the point where they are over threshold, because you want to see how long you've got in terms of how long can I leave my dog. But the object of this training is to come back in before we get the upset, before we get the panic setting in, before we even get, hopefully, we don't even want to come back in when they're just holding it together. We want to try and make sure that they don't get to that point. So we want to make sure that they're still nice and comfortable and confident. And then we're using that gradual exposure therapy that I keep talking about to build up the time. But so it is a common mistake that people do make. So without having specialist knowledge, and also that it is tailored to your dog, because every home and every situation is different. So what might apply to one person and their dog may be completely different for another person and their dog. That is why when I'm doing this podcast, it can be a little bit tricky for me to be specific, simply because I have to make it a little bit generalized, because, as I said, what might apply to one dog may not apply to the other. What a dog in an apartment might be struggling with different issues compared to a dog that lives in the woods or in a suburban area. So it all depends on the home setup, the location, what external impacts might be, what external impacts there might be towards the dog. You know, is it a construction site nearby? Is it really, really noisy? Or perhaps there's I did have one client a while back that their dog was triggered very badly because they lived near the woods and people were letting off guns in the woods, and that would make the dog panic. So as I said, every situation is different. And even your day-to-day living situation can be different in terms of where you work or what your routines are, and what you do day to day. So that is why I created this podcast, to try and help you through some of these things, to navigate some of these situations. However, I do have to be a little bit general in terms of the advice I give. I can't tailor it to you specifically, because a good example of this is some dogs prefer more warm-ups in terms of reaching that final step where we're gradually increasing that time. Some dogs need more of the backwards and forwards, the warm-up steps, the pre-steps, and some dogs need less and some dogs need none. So it really does depend. So I did create this podcast to help people like yourself to get your lives back, and so you can have that spontaneity that you want. But also, it's horrible watching a dog. If you are watching your dog on a live camera feed, it is horrible to see them panicking. It's really, really not nice. Or perhaps your neighbors are complaining. It's awful coming home to maybe a note shoved on the letterbox from the neighbor, who's obviously very angry because they've been listening to your dog bark all day. So yeah, it's not nice. But in the last episode, I did talk to you about the alone method. If you haven't listened to that, I really suggest you go back and do so. Mistakes can cost you dearly if your dog does go over threshold for some reason. And that is why we are here. And that is also why I created my program, which is to offer that support. So I'm hoping that you're listening to this and you're getting lots and lots out of these episodes. There'll be more detail. There'll be as much information as I can pack in over the next, however many episodes there are. But it could be a case where for you in particular, you need more tailored support to your particular situation. And that is why I created my program. It offers that support that you need, and we can talk through your specific situation and tailor the training to you and your dog's needs. And that's really important. One dog is not the same as the other. One situation is not the same as the other. So when I created my program, I also developed an app. So it's a training app. It's a web-based training app, and it literally takes the thinking out of it for you. So you are not wondering, are you getting it right? What is the next step? Am I pushing my dog too hard? It creates clarity for you. You have the chance to take advantage of the support and say, well, okay, the app is saying X, Y, Z, but my situation's slightly different. That's when you reach out to me and we work through it. What is going on in your life? What is going on in your dog's life? Are you in a house? Are you in an apartment? What external things are in the environment that could be impacting your dog? That's really important. It really does away with the self-doubt. It takes the thinking out of everything for you. You don't have to wonder. So I'm trying to think of an analogy that might help offer some clarity. So imagine if I wanted to learn golf. Now, I have tried golf and it's not really my thing, but let's say I did want to learn golf, and I know what I've got to do. I've got a ball and I've got a club, and I put the ball on the tee and I've got to whack the ball. So I've got a pretty good idea what to do, which you may do now already by listening to some of these podcast episodes. However, if I really wanted to whack that ball properly, I'm sure that's not what they call it, maybe strike. Oh gosh, you can tell I know nothing about golf. So I'm here scratching my head saying, I know that I've got to hit this little ball into this hole over here in the grass, but there's more to it than that. It's not just a case of whacking it with my club. I think, you have to hold the club in a certain way and pull it back in a certain way and strike the ball in a certain way. And I don't know, there's probably a whole range of other things that you need to do. Now, without a coach, I'm probably never going to be a great golfer. And, you know, that would be fine if I just want to go and have a little bit of fun on the, what do they call it? A field? Courseway? Anyway, whatever. I don't know. I know nothing about golf, as you can clearly see. I have no desire to learn golf. But what I'm saying is I can go and do that. I can go and get some friends together and go and whack the ball around on the fairway. However, if I really wanted to get good, or perhaps I have a shoulder injury and I need to, you know, learn how to hit the ball properly. That's a terrible analogy. I think you guys get the picture anyway. So I can go and have some fun, but if I really want to get serious and I really want to achieve results, I might need to get a coach and get more support. I apologize for that analogy. I hope it made sense, and I do hope that you get what I'm trying to say. But imagine it, yeah. So you get the idea. So here you are, you've kind of got an idea of what to do, but your specific situation might be a little bit different to somebody else's, and you just might need a little bit extra support. So if you do, you can reach out to me at nessjones.com and book a free 30-minute Zoom conversation, and we can see if my program is relevant for your situation and your dog, or if you even need me at all. But imagine doing away with that self-doubt. That is why I created the app, because I just wanted people to be able to move forward and, you know, feel confident leaving their dog and helping their dog overcome this, because it's just, apart from you knowing that your dog is panicking, imagine what your poor dog is going through. So now imagine your dog is just lying in its bed when you walk out the door. It's nice and relaxed, and you're going out with your friends. Maybe you're going to the movies and a dinner, and you feel confident and your dog is feeling confident. How good would that feel? So I hope you got something out of this episode. Sorry for the terrible analogy. Sorry, it's still making me laugh. I'm sure any golfers listening to this will be rolling their eyes, and I wouldn't blame you. So see you next time. You have been listening to Ness Jones on the Separation Anxiety in Dogs Decoded podcast. Don't forget to check out the show notes to learn more about my programs and how I can help you with tailored training. Until next time.